I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about the month of October and my astrological predictions for this month. And remember, I am doing sidereal Vedic astrology, which is different than tropical Western astrology. So you will find that the placements of the planets according to the signs are quite different. So looking at this month, we have a much needed shift of energy for Saturn. Towards the end of this month, October 26th, Saturn will shift into Sagittarius. It has been in Scorpio since November of 2014. And it shifted a little back and forth in the spring, if you recall. Around January through May, we had it in Sagittarius, but now it's here to stay. And those of you that have Scorpio as an ascendant or your moon will be so relieved, because this shift will give you a much needed break. Now, one of the things that I do predict with this is the price of oil and gas. If you go back to November of 2014, when Saturn first went into Scorpio, that was the month that oil and gas prices dropped to the bottom. And of course, being here in Texas, a lot of people were very concerned over this. Of course, it's much nicer for those of you at the pumps. But here's the thing. If you go back to the 80s, the last time that Saturn shifted into Scorpio, now remember Saturn takes about 28 to 30 years to go through the whole zodiac of 12 signs. But when it goes into Scorpio, the prices of fuel, oil and gas drops radically. But on the good side, for those of you that do investing, this is an advantage to know this, because if you go back to 1985 to 87, that was a tremendous fall. Again, with oil and gas prices. People were suffering that were in the business. And then it so slowly returned. By the 90s, it was doing wonderful for the oil companies again and those that invested in oil. So when the oil prices dropped tremendously in 2014, the end of 2014, I told everyone, now's the time to invest in oil and gas, because the prices were so low. And now it's going to come back, because as soon as Saturn leaves Scorpio for good, remember that Saturn rules crude oil. So when it goes into the sign of Scorpio, the bottom drops out. But now it's going to come up. Now that may not be so positive at the pumps, but let me just say to invest in oil and gas. Because over the period of the next 2 years, while Saturn transits in Sagittarius, it will rise. And this will take place between October 26th till January of 2020. And you stand to make a great profit. One of the companies that I recommended in my magazine for Astrologic Magazine is Halliburton. Halliburton deals more with the drilling of oil and all the equipment involved in that aspect of oil and gas. But one of my favorites has always been Concho. And the other ones that I think are great, of course, are going to be Chevron and all the big boys, because they were able to buy up all the small companies. So that's my prediction along those lines. Now, because Jupiter going into Libra is all about peace, I think there's going to be some trends of people coming together, not being so violent, not being so angry, wanting to find balance in the world. This is going to be the future trend throughout this cycle of Jupiter while it transits through the sign of Libra. Now, Jupiter entered Libra around September 11th, and it will remain in this sign till October of 2018. So we have a solid year of Jupiter being in Libra. And one of the other attributes of this is Libra being an air sign will bring on colder weather for the northern hemisphere. So it's also going to be in October around the new moon, which is around the 19th and 20th of October. You're going to find that because Jupiter is conjunct the new moon and they're in the nakshatra called Swati. Swati deals with the winds, and this will be that we're going to have cold winds blow in for this fall. So recognize there's going to be a lot colder weather during this winter in the northern hemisphere. Another thing that's going on that's very significant during this time is you've heard me talk about Gandanta planets. Gandanta literally means drowning. And with Mars and Rahu right there at that 29-degree mark of Cancer, it's Gandanta. Gandanta means the last degrees of water and the early degrees of fire. And it literally means drowning. So what you're going to see is that while Rahu is still at the final degrees of Cancer, and we have Saturn now that's going to move up to 29 degrees of Scorpio, there's going to be a sense of people losing control, because even though Gandanta means literally drowning, I believe it means that there's this effect of feeling like we're drowning in emotions and losing control. And because 29 degrees of Scorpio, where Saturn is, all throughout this month before it shifts into Sagittarius, which literally is still going to be Gandanta, early fire, there's going to be a lot more disease that comes about this particular month. And not only that, Mars will be transiting in Virgo, all about disease. So watch that this month, and I think because of all the flood waters and all of the water, there's so much contamination throughout the world. There's a problem with poisons in the water. Remember, the last degrees of Scorpio is part of that scorpion tail, which has to do with poisons. And I see all sorts of water contaminated because of floods. It's causing disease literally all over the world. But on top of that, the flu season will be very intense. Watch for the arising of more infections, more disease, more flu season that will start this fall. So this is going to be all about health and problems around in the area of health. And yes, there needs to be a healing. Another aspect that's going on is called Kala Sarpa Yoga. What that's all about is that all the planets, and in Vedic astrology, it sometimes does not include the outer planets, which it does not. It's the planets that are visible to the naked eye, which represents to Saturn, when they're all on one side of Rahu and Ketu. Now this will be in effect all the way through to January, but of course there's 2 weeks out of each month that the moon will break the Kala Sarpa Yoga when it goes out of the confines of Rahu and Ketu, which are the north and south node of the moon. So in October, it'll pretty much be the second part of October that we have the Kala Sarpa Yoga in effect, which represents that things are more intense, things heat up, things become fiery, and everything that's going on reaches sort of like a crescendo where everyone's concerned and worried, and yes, events happen. And I also noticed that Uranus, the planet of sudden change and earthquakes and unbelievable happenings, is almost exactly opposed this new moon this month around the 20th. So you're going to see major events where I believe there's more volcanic eruptions, there's earthquakes, natural disasters, and man-made disasters as well. So around the 17th of October, there's going to be an aspect between Mars and Uranus, which they're in this quincunx, which is definitely a difficult aspect. So watch for more earthquakes and upsetting events to be happening worldwide. But overall, I do see more of a sense for peace, for making balance come together in the world. People are tired of the fighting. They're exhausted. They're looking for a break. Now, because President Donald Trump's moon is at 28 degrees of Scorpio and his sun is at 29 degrees of Taurus, as Saturn comes to this point, look out, this is going to be a very treacherous month for him. Once Saturn shifts into Sagittarius, there will be a lot less of the problems that we see arising going against him. So people will begin to come together with a sense of peace towards the end of this month. And many people are concerned about North Korea and all of those upsets. I believe by the end of this month, it will begin to dissipate all the fear, all the contention. But it will come to a peak where something has to be addressed for world healing. And that occurs this month. That occurs this month exactly because of the Kalasarpa Yoga. Whatever feels like it's been faded, things that have to come to a head in order to have a healing are going to happen this month. This is a very, very intense month. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about that's very important is some people have been asking me, what about September 23rd? This was supposed to be a day where it's like the Armageddon or something huge was going to be happening based on something in the Bible. Well, my response to that is there really wasn't anything hugely astrologically happening on that day, because that was supposed to be this day of, you know, a huge event. I didn't see it, but I will make a comment here that I think is important and long overdue. And that is, so many people throughout history have been denoting things in the Bible or even from other religious texts that proclaim that God is, you know, punishing the earth because man or humankind have been so evil and so bad that they deserve punishment. Well, I want to set it straight here right now. I don't believe God punishes. God does not have human qualities of judgment, of hate, of anger, and therefore punishment. So I want you to know that everything that's happening in this world is a result of our own actions, not that there is an almighty being, especially with a beard, that is out to punish mankind. It is our doing and our actions that bring our own punishment. And those that feel that certain individuals or certain countries deserve to be punished are wrong, because that is simply their own projection of their anger and hostility and resentment. And this really does denote an enormous amount of they want to project shame and humiliation onto others because of their self-righteousness. And you cannot use religion or God to claim these things. So everything that happens is a result of the trends and the opportunities or the obstacles that sometimes the planetary energy is about. but it is humans and mankind that put out these intense feelings of fear or hatred or anger that projects and shakes the earth. But the divine, whatever you want to call that essence that gives us life, God, the divine, I like to call it the divine because it's something that is not a part of humans. It is so far above, and it is, in essence, unconditional love. So there is no such thing as this angry, punishing God that many people would like to stake claim of in this world. So this month is a real turning point. I think there's so much peace and so many opportunities that are coming for us to change ourselves. And when you project this sense of love and peace and happiness out into the world, that's what you get back. And that's the world that I think is trying to evolve out of and come out of with these planetary shifts of energy. Rahu being in Cancer, and Ketu being in Capricorn, there will be many balances, checks and balances that are coming about in terms of healing the economy. But for the most part, I think the economy will still be on an upswing for quite some time. There is not going to be a major crash, as many predict. And I'd like for you to know, my entrepreneur son, Austin Daniel Patry, just started his YouTube channel. He has 2-minute videos on startup companies and how they grew to successes. It is extremely inspirational, and I know you'll love it, and it's only 2 minutes. So with that, if you'll click on his picture here, you can subscribe to his channel. If you would like to learn more about me, you can always go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org. Or if you would like to learn Vedic astrology, I have a university, University of Vedic Astrology.com. Thank you.